Brand new data from Redfin is showing a dramatic shift in the 2025 housing market. Houses and condos are now lingering on the market longer than they have in 5 years, leaving sellers across the country in panic mode. While many speculate about a looming crash, the numbers are showing a different, unusual story. The shocking fact is that the downturn has already begun. By the end of 2025, the headlines won't be about an impending crash, they'll be about the one we're already in. Let's start with Austin as the first example. Here, a typical single-family home sold for around $657,000 in June of 2022, according to Zillow.com. Today, that number is $534,000. And it's easy to see that prices have been on a long, winding road down. Today, we are at a 20% decline from this peak, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. To put this into perspective, the biggest housing crash in recent history, 2008, saw the typical American home decline by 27% over 5 years. Austin, however, is just 7% away from that figure in only 3 years. In this supposedly booming Texas city, prices are declining faster than the '08 crash, yet nobody seems to be talking about it. And it's not just Austin that is struggling. Plenty of cities across the South are facing the same issue to varying degrees. In Phoenix, we had a massive 10% drop in less than 1 year following the 2022 peak. Prices went on to recover a bit in 2024, but this past summer, Phoenix once again began declining and now finds itself down about 7% from the peak. I'm not going to list off all the other cities facing similar circumstances, but the real story behind these price drops across the South isn't just in the price numbers, it's in the inventory data. Now, you might be thinking, why does inventory matter when I'm buying a house? After all, buyers care about the price tag, not how many homes are listed on their local MLS. But there's one metric in residential real estate that has consistently predicted market trends: months of supply. Though it might seem dull or unrelated, it is the single most important indicator of where a market is headed. Yet despite its critical significance, no one is talking about it, even as alarm bells are ringing at a nuclear level. For example, according to Redfin, the months of supply in Miami and Fort Lauderdale has risen to 10 and 11 months respectively. These numbers might not mean much at first glance, but to put it into perspective, a balanced market where prices remain stable and conditions are healthy is typically around 6 months of supply. We are now at nearly double that level during the pandemic, and still in many US cities like Buffalo, the months of supply figure was just 1 month. That's an entirely different world where sellers can just keep pushing prices up because there simply isn't any other listings. Yet despite this massive surge in inventory, we have yet to see significant price declines in Miami or Fort Lauderdale, but this simply cannot continue for long. We saw the same pattern unfold in 2008. Inventory piled up while prices held steady until the foundation finally collapsed. And just like back then, it started in many Florida markets before spreading across the country. Reventure Consulting has a great app that shows inventory changes across many measures, and here you can listen to him explain just how bad things are in the Sunshine State. Take a listen to this quick clip.
But what's crazy and why I think values are going to drop more in these areas to go forward is the inventory. Inventory in Palm Beach is up 40%. In Broward, it's up 60%. In Miami, it's up 41%. In Naples, it's up 44%. All across Florida, the inventory is just going through the roof. In Orange County and Orlando, inventory is up 50%. So we now have almost the highest level of inventory in 7 years in Orlando. In many of these counties, we have the highest level of supply in 7 to 10 years. And so what I think is going to happen, if I'm going to make a prediction here for the housing market in 2025, is that these sellers are going to be in for a rude awakening in the spring housing market. And that many of these sellers who are overpricing their houses again this year, they're going to have to cut the price and cut the price fast if they want to sell. And if you are a prospective seller, please listen to what I'm telling you here. Please pay attention to the data for your market, because if the data for your market is saying supply is way up, days on the market is way up, that's saying that you should not overprice your house.
So essentially what's happening here is that sellers are currently in denial. In the last few years, they were able to list their homes for sky-high prices and people were willing to pay. In many Florida markets, you could buy a home and by the time you close, turn around and sell it for a substantial profit without lifting a finger. This all came down to scarcity and demand, but things have changed so quickly that a lot of these sellers are just in straight up denial. In Fort Lauderdale, for example, the median days on market, which shows how long homes sit on the MLS, has skyrocketed past 100 days. During the pandemic days, it was in the low 30s, meaning that this figure has tripled in the last few years, and it also proves that sellers are just refusing to budge despite their neighbors all listing their homes with them. But even if we accept all this, maybe you are saying to yourself, well, people have been calling out the bubble for years now and prices have remained resilient. Why is this any different? Well, I can point to one final piece: homebuilders. These national home building brands are the most sophisticated and savvy real estate experts in the world. They have entire data and marketing teams researching every aspect of demand and supply, and at the same time, builders are actually the first people to move prices and offer incentives to move their inventory. They are very elastic to the market because they answer to shareholders, not families. And of course, many of these shareholders are financial institutions that have entire teams dedicated to figuring out where these builders are going. So what is happening right now? Well, after a wild ride up, they are almost universally collapsing. Pulte Homes is down 30% since October. NVR or Ryan Homes is down 27%. And D.R. Horton, America's largest residential home builder, is down 35% since October, not even 4 months ago. This is an all-out meltdown, and buyers will blame interest rates for this, but we all know rates have been high for well over a year now, so why the sudden change in October? Even as early as 3 weeks ago, people were saying that the new home space was thriving. Take a listen to this report from CNBC earlier in the month.
So, Drew just kind of gave the optimistic view on where the markets have maybe not been optimistic lately, and certainly one area that's been the case has been home builders. Some of the biggest players in the space, names like Toll Brothers, Lennar, Pulte, they've been floored not just today but lately, because as interest rates go up, the stocks go down, and many are tracking for their worst month since March of 2020. Although we know what kind of a buying opportunity that turned out to be. Let's bring in Diana Olick with some of the latest numbers and a discussion about housing. Diana.
Well, those stocks are down squarely due to higher mortgage rates this month. After a pretty volatile year, we're back at the highs with the 30-year fixed well over 7%. Expectations last year were that rates would be in the low sixes, headed toward a five handle, and that is just no longer anywhere in the prediction. As a result, the home construction ETF, ITB, is down close to 17% month to date, on pace for its worst month since March of 2020, of course, the start of the pandemic. Builders have been buying down mortgage rates, but it's really hitting their margins now. All that said, when you look on the existing home side, we just got the read on pending home sales in November, up 2.2% month to month and up 6.9% from November of last year. That's the fourth straight month of gains. Now, this count is based on signed contracts, so it's people out shopping in November when the average on the 30-year fixed spent much of the month over 7% before coming down in the last week of that month. The Realtor's chief economist claims consumers are now used to higher rates. So, Brian, that means 7 is the new 5?
So there you had surprisingly good numbers for sales, yet every stock since then has been beat down while rates have remained steady. And there at the end, you heard how these big banks have concerns regarding supply and falling demand. There's now serious evidence pointing that something is going to give out, especially in the South. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed it.